retired Indian Administrative Service Officer and also the ex-Finance Secretary of Government of India, and worked extensively with both the DMK and the ADMK regime from the 1960s to the late 80s. And he has written this book called Dravidian Years, which I enjoy. He talks about his experience in working with 3 different chief ministers of Tamil Nadu and how some of their policies helped in developing an equitable Tamil Nadu. And next is Dr. Vivek Srinivasan, who runs his own advisory company, advising governments. And he has been previously associated with Georgetown University and Stanford University. I'm sorry, I think he's still associated with Georgetown, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. And he's also a lecturer in these universities. And he has written this book on book called Delivering Public Services in Tamil Nadu and Beyond, where he compares how the delivery of public services in Tamil Nadu is with other, probably mostly with North Indian states. In his book, you extensively talk about his travel in Madhya Pradesh and Tamil Nadu and how some of the public services in Tamil Nadu are effective compared to the rest of India, or maybe at least one of the best in India. And also he speaks about how the mobilization capacity of the backward caste and the SCs and STs have helped to achieve the same. And third, we have Karthik Akleshwaran. He's an alumnus of Harvard Business School, and he previously worked with the Tony Blair Institute, where he has written a very interesting paper comparing delivery of healthcare of Tamil Nadu along with Gujarat, and he says why Tamil Nadu model is superior. And he is currently an associate director at CGIS, and I welcome each one of you. And I would humbly request Dr. Narayan to start and give his opinion on this topic.
Why don't you put me in the way and ask some specific questions, and then I can take on. Otherwise, I'd be talking all over the place. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So my question is, why do you think Tamil Nadu, take any socio-economic metrics, Tamil Nadu ranks in top 3 places among Indian states? I think this is something that's unique to Tamil Nadu. It has managed to implement socialistic policies at the same time not sacrificing industrial growth. So, for example, you say Kerala has better socio-economic growth than Tamil Nadu, but does not have industrial growth. But Tamil Nadu has managed to do both. So, do you think it has to do with the government, or it happened by itself, or it's the people, or did we have any other advantage?
Okay, if we look from the present backwards, only today the Niti Aayog came out with the annual report on the SDG, the development goals. And if you look at all the parameters, Kerala comes out the best. They got 74 out of 100. And Tamil Nadu is a very, very close second at 74, along with Himachal Pradesh. So the first thing I want to say is, yes, Tamil Nadu is unique, but not necessarily so unique that the other states are not able to match up. There are several other states. There are states at 72, states at 71. And if you look across the parameters, there are states which have done exceedingly well. And Tamil Nadu will catch up. In fact, I will not be surprised if the next year's report comes out. Tamil Nadu and Himachal Pradesh would be equal to, or if not marginally better than Kerala. And there are reasons for this. So each state is in a way, in several ways, unique in itself, and unique in terms of socio-cultural characteristics as well as economic development opportunities that the particular state has had. So let us look at, before going into the political aspects and the Dravidian culture aspects, let us look at the advantages that Tamil Nadu has had. The advantage of Tamil Nadu which has had is that it is a highly urbanized state. So highly urbanized state, and today 58% of the 18 to 25 population are able to access higher education, which means urbanized, highly educated states, which means that the service sector, which means all the IT sector, the digital sector, etc., opportunities for their employments comes naturally, and this itself raises the level of I would say expectations, delivery, as well as performance in the particular state. The higher education has also been concentrated. Let us not forget substantial number of medical institutions. So if you have a large number of medical institutions and therefore a large number of nursing institutions and therefore investments in hospitals, therefore the doctor to patient ratio is in Tamil Nadu nearly 1.5 times better than the WHO standards. So which also means that this raising of educational standards has made it happen. Why is Tamil Nadu so good in education? Why is there urbanization? Again a particular factor, and that factor is that Tamil Nadu is a fairly low rainfall area. The rainfall is concentrated in 2 to 3 months in a year. Therefore, agriculture as a proportion of GDP in Tamil Nadu is only about 17%, which is one of the lowest. And this has made youngsters move more and more into educated and skilled employment, which has worked out extremely good for the state. So the underpinning thing is that there is a natural advantage in Tamil Nadu in assimilating and making use of government services and taking advantage of the government services which are offered. On top of this, at the top of this, you come into the social phenomenon. The social phenomenon which started off primarily, again, if you go back, I'll just 5 minutes because the story is a bit long. The social justice movement which was originated by Mr. P.T. Rajan and co. The original social justice movement was just about providing opportunities for the other communities, because they did feel that the Brahmins were occupying a very large number of positions in government, in judiciary, in the secretariat, everywhere. And this was about getting opportunities for them. But we must remember that the social justice movement itself was propelled or promoted by the British, because they felt that the Congress at that particular point of time consisted entirely of Brahmins, and they wanted an alternate communities to come up and speak in favor of the British rule. So you would see that the Justice Party was by and large never for independence. They did not speak about Tamil. They were much more about opportunities in terms of education, employment, and government. It was only after Periyar, and much more significantly after Anna and Kalaignar, that you have this concept of the Tamilian identity coming to the fore. The Tamilian identity came to the fore nearly 20, 30 years after the Justice Party. And therefore, the departure of Anna to form the DMK was in a way the path which he took to realize not just the social justice goal, but a much larger goal, a change in the social structure of the state to enable people from the backward and the most backward communities to take advantage. So when I was a student in college, I was part of, if you read the book, you'll know I was part of this. All this was happening. In 1962, Kalaignar won from Kulitale. And all his speeches at that time, and even from 1958 onwards, all the movies of, even if you look at the MGR movies, pre-58 movies and post-58 movies, there's a very definite difference. The pre-58 movies talk mostly about Rajas and Ranis and this and that, more. But subsequently, you have social messages. Whether you take Rikshakaran, whether you take Meenavananban, whether you take any other thing, you have very specific social messages came in, which fitted in entirely with the ethos of the youth which were growing up at that particular point of time. And once this ethos came in, once they came into power, once they came into power, one sec. I'll just switch off my phone. Once they came into power, in the first 3-4 years itself, the kind of social changes that they brought about in administration were so significant as to make the whole structure of delivery totally different. One very simple thing that I talk about is that during the Congress rule, the bureaucracy was in a way top down. There were the old ICS officers, there were senior IAS officers. The command used to come from the top down to the collectors, to the sub-collectors, etc. And delivery happened with reference to certain particular norms, which were, I would call them colonial norms. But after 1967, immediately after 1967, all this changed. We were much more listening to what people had to say, whether it were district secretaries, whether it was panchayat presidents, whether it was MLAs, etc. So the requirements started coming up from the bottom. So a total turnaround from the top-down approach to the bottom-up approach in governance. And Kalaignar introduced even long ago in 1970 itself something called a Manu Nidhi system. Every Monday, we are supposed to collect petitions from the public and provide them justice, provide them solutions, something which Mr. Stalin has reintroduced at this particular point of time. So, which was not there in the previous Congress and other government. So, a total rethinking of the structure of administration. That administration was about delivery of public services, not about delivery of rules and regulations alone, was the big change that came about in 1967. I will end this introductory remarks by saying that the major changes happened during Kalaignar's first round, that is, I would say, right up to 1976. The MGR regime and subsequently the Jayalalitha regime were not so much wedded into this ideology of I would say, social change. I mean, they were much more leaders in their own right, but they were not integrated with the kind of social milieu as much as Kalaignar was. So in a way, I would call those are the years of change which made this happen. Now, what happened? I mean, I will listen to others and come back to what happened.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your opening
Thank you.
remarks. It was very insightful.